Howdy folks, Lisa here at Everything is a Lie again. Welcome to Carminow Castle. Today you are here. We're up on Mount Lofty in South Australia for a castle. Finally, another castle in Suburbia. Get comfy and I'll tell you about Carminow and Mount Lofty.
Wake up and listen.
Carminow Castle is situated near the summit of Mount Lofty, 15 kilometres from Adelaide City in the Adelaide Hills. It is resting at a height of some 700 metres above sea level and has clear views to the city and coast below. It is a private residence, visible on the outskirts of the Mount Lofty Botanical Garden. The two-storey house features a square tower and a turret, extensive crenellation and blind arches. It is also situated on a neatly squared-off mound. The house is said to have been built in the Scottish baronial style as a summer house by the Scottish migrant Sir Thomas Elder in 1885. We will come back to Sir Thomas in a future video. His purported land holdings in South Australia are astronomical for the time frame and are estimated to be larger than the entire country of his native Scotland. He is also the man credited with importing the camels into Australia. Elder was a member of the Upper House of Parliament and well known for his philanthropy and patronage of science, education and the exploration of inland Australia. Or that is, he was the money man behind expeditions that even the government couldn't accomplish, so they say. He speculated in mining, wool production and shipping, and was also a founding director in the Adelaide Steamship Company. Carminow, allegedly, is where Sir Thomas Elder died in March 1897, his estate worth some £800,000 at the time of his death. From 1905, Langdon Bonnython, another politician and philanthropist, lived in Carminow. There is little other information regarding Carminow, but I wanted to point out the detail in the stonework between the stories of the tower, and also that it has multiple outbuildings. At least some appear to be oldie-worldy. Is it an estate or part of something more? I have to wonder if anything has been removed, including a lower level or two, and the bay-shaped crenellations on the roof hint that perhaps the two-storey veranda was a later addition. Okay, so I'm definitely not paranoid. This is happening. I left Carminow open on Google must be almost a week ago, and it was a location. It had a location. It existed as something you could click on above the building, and and about half a dozen photos open. I thought that's awesome. That's some more recent photos than the ones I have from the library to show you. And now I'm clicking all around, and no, nothing. It doesn't exist anymore. You can't look at it. The name's definitely on the gate at the front. That is the place. It has the right shape. It's in the location, but it's no longer listed as I'm pretty sure it was a castle. So several of my recents have disappeared, things that I've looked at recently, and this was one of them. But fear not, my darlings. Somebody saved us some drone footage of it. Let's look at that. There was a most curious coincidence whilst I was initially researching Carminow, and that was that Mind Unveiled channel posted this video in which he explores the strange and seemingly fabricated history of an almost identical building in a similar location, perched high on a hill. It also has the same tower, although slightly taller, and the turret, but the turret has the little witch's hat in his. His also had bells though, we don't get any bells. Strangely though, that same night, I saw that video, link below. I saw this image in a John Levi video, so I thought I best include it as well. Don't know what it's all about, but there it is. Best I can do is an enormous energy harvester, obelisk, Flinders Column, located at the nearby summit of Mount Lofty. But before we do that, as I've said, I feel that Carminow has been altered. I definitely feel, or shall I say, I strongly feel, that the Will Rogers Shrine of the Sun has been very heavily altered. Let's take a closer look. Looking at the stonework on Mind Unveiled's version of the building, this stonework looks slightly different to this and this. And I feel that there's been alterations around the door. But if you look at these remind me, the whole thing reminds me of part of a cathedral. This is unusual. What's missing here? A big flying buttress? I have to wonder, is this the remnants of a cathedral? Just a thought. Mount Lofty, South Australia. Mount Lofty, at an elevation of 710 metres or 2,330 feet, is the highest point in the southern Mount Lofty ranges. It is located about 15 kilometres east of the Adelaide city centre, within the Cleland National Park in the Adelaide Hills area of South Australia. The mountain summit has panoramic views of the city and the Adelaide Plains to the west and of the Piccadilly Valley to the east. Named by Matthew Flinders in 1802 during his circumnavigation of the Australian continent. The explorer Colette Barker was allegedly the first European to climb Mount Lofty in April 1831, pointing and naming stuff almost 6 years before Adelaide was settled. Further on Barker, he also travelled several hundreds of kilometres in the following 3 weeks by ship and by foot, and was apparently murdered by Aborigines aged 46 whilst travelling alone, with an incomplete diary of his findings. Let's just say I'm suspicious of this account and possibly even his existence. Back to Mount Lofty. There was a stone cairn at the summit which was originally used to mark the trig point, and in 1885 this was replaced by an obelisk which is said to have served as a central reference point for surveying Adelaide City. The summit of Mount Lofty was closed to the public during the Second World War, when the obelisk was considered an indispensable navigation aid. I'm not sure how the public were a threat to that, but that's what Wikipedia says. A flashing strobe was fitted to the top to improve visibility at night. This strobe was removed after the war, but then reinstalled in the 1990s when the obelisk was repainted and restored. Let's take a look at Flinders Column in the black and white days. The column was originally erected as a trig station, a trigonometry station, in 1885, but was later dedicated to commemorate Matthew Flinders, discoverer of Mount Lofty. Some 16 years later, in an unveiling ceremony held on March 22, 1902, South Australian Governor Lord Tennyson officially named the column with the words, "This column shall be known to all men for all generations as the Flinders Column." I have no explanation for this image, but it was definitely a standout of several on the State Library page. I also have no explanation as to why would the door be 8 or 10 feet from the ground and require a ladder to enter or exit. This is the official plaque at the base of the Flinders Memorial Column. It reads, "Flinders Column, in honour of Matthew Flinders, commander of the Investigator, who from Kangaroo Head, Kangaroo Island, discovered and named Mount Lofty on Tuesday the 23rd of March, 1802. This plaque was unveiled, and the energy harvester, the column, was named by His Excellency Lord Tennyson on 22nd of March 1902. After the unveiling ceremony of the plaque by Lord Tennyson on the 22nd of March 1902, everyone, all wearing their Sunday best and their top hats, smiled for a photograph, and nobody noticed the ladder lean in the back there, too busy with the plaque to put the ladder away. Note that the rather curious ladder lean is not even situated at the door in this image. Moving on. As noted already, surrounding Carminow, we have a bit of a botanic garden type cover-up. Note Magic Springs there, a natural mineral spring, now licensed to a private company. I won't delve any more into that, just know that it's there. Mount Lofty train station is oldie worldy for sure, with the brick coining and the chimneys, but it doesn't seem to be a traditional train station building at all, nor is it particularly close to the summit. We'll take a look at a couple of images of that. From 1900, this is an old postcard of the station. Note all the blockwork is completely hidden behind vines. So that's for international circulation, I'd imagine. And there's a whole other building here that's not currently standing or is cropped in to cover the little mud flood window that was down in the other image. So I've been looking at old photos of the station. There's multiple incarnations of this fence, but there's a mud flood door down there. So I've just been comparing a few images. We've got your Rent-A-Crowd again, pasted in, and they give you a blurry person, so you know it's real. They're real people, and some fake smoke added in. It's just steam, but it's completely occluded everything in a sharp line. Over here, they've just given you some little blurry legs. So those people are phasing in and out. One-legged people. The Oldie Mill. This was a trip, this place. Dunn's Mill, Bridgewater, on the other side of the hill to Carminow, next to the Bridgewater Inn. So the township was originally called Cox Creek, apparently, but the name was later changed to Bridgewater when the adjacent flour mill was built by John Donne in 1859. Nothing to do with the Bridgewater Hotel that was established 18 years earlier in 1841. And, of course, that was nothing to do with the bridge over the water, the oldie worldy one, because that supposedly wasn't built until the 1880s, so the story goes. And there's all this confusion over how the town got its name. Go figure. Back to the mill. The stone was known as Old Rumbler, so they say. The official story goes, in the latter half of the 19th century, the manufacture of flour was one of South Australia's earliest successful industries. Flour from Bridgewater Mill was transported all over Australia, although we didn't seem to have a shortage of old mills. They were almost as common as breweries. Anywho, good story and well told. Let's look at some images. This one. This very dodgy photograph from 1869 shows stacks of grain sacks ready to be ground at the mill. So I see they've got a wooden channel rigged up above the wheel to make it turn, but it looks pretty unsafe. These props underneath look very haphazard. I'm assuming they weren't expecting rain for some weeks either, because they'd be sacks of sprouts if they were left out in the wet, even covered with tarps or something. This has to be a joke. They're going to absorb water, surely. In the corner here, the awning is cut off sharply, and there seems to be a very straight cut along the edge of the bags. The bag sizes are also inconsistent over here. Looks a bit suspect to me. There's a chimney missing on this outbuilding that appears in later images. There's a guy with a trolley up there. I wonder how easy it is to wheel a trolley over stacked bags of wheat, and how they're getting them up there. Surely they're not lifting them up. Is that what these posts are about, these sticks? They're pushing them all the way up there? How heavy are they? 10, 20 kilos, 30 kilos? The ramp here, are they going up or down? Either way, it looks to be difficult. And in the front here, Mr. White with his hands on his hips. He has a mini-me all in white as well. Must have been bring your kid to work day. Anywho, it's all a bit low resolution to say much else for sure. Ridiculous though, if you ask me. Let's just go ahead and we'll stamp this one fake. But wait, there's more. So after initially looking at the mill and the nearby Bridgewater Hotel, I realised there's actually no water anywhere in the vicinity to turn that wheel. So I went back for further examination, just to make sure we weren't being had, yeah? I also had to homeschool myself on how water wheels work, because I was sure they were meant to be located on a stream or a canal at least. She's a heck of a wheel to have stood the test of time and still be there today. It must have worked, right? Even if they're faking the history in some way, you'd hope. I'll go through the images in chronological order. These are the best of a bunch. One of those cases where there's so many images, you have to wonder, dost thou really protest too much? Next up, we have a wonderful image from 1883 showing the Bridgewater Hotel in the right of the frame and the mill buildings lodged in the side of the hill with a fantastic pile of rocks stretching all the way across the rear. I wonder where they came from and where they're going to. But where is the water? I can see a bit of a puddle down here, and there's a bridge off to the left, but the trees obscure everything as if that's the creek. I thought from up here you might see where the water is feeding from. Here we have the very capable looking staff of the mill in 1888. These must be the management team. not the riffraff we saw in the first image. Surely they know how it works. The guy with the hat in his lap does, for sure. The old guy, meh, maybe not so much. Look at the face. I really don't think we can pull this off. A wheel without water. Who are we kidding? Nobody's going to buy this story. Then, in 1894, they were picnicking there in droves. I do hope it was turned off that day because they're dangerously close and stacked so high. We wouldn't want a nasty accident like St. Martin on Martinmas. These things can kill people. Watch out. Next, this one showing they're stockpiling wood by the looks of it, and we finally get a good look at the chimney on that little outbuilding near the wheel. It's oldie-worldy, and there is definitely two of them, one in the centre of that rear wall and one right near the wheel. Okay, we're up to 1910 here. This one clearly showing water is flowing down the water race towards the wheel, and the wheel is turning anti-clockwise. Okay, thank you ladies, lovely shot. Now we know for sure that's the way it's meant to go, right? And we can clearly see both chimneys on the little outbuilding in the front there. In 1920, a strange building appears in the background where the wood was, and I am still sure that the water race is at the wrong angle to be feeding water in and must be draining water away. It's hard to say for sure, but the building must be level, so it should be running almost parallel to the gutter, right? But it appears to be sloping away. Maybe it's just the angle. Then, also in 1920, it had gangsters with Stetsons positioned in front of it. But hey, didn't everything? Spiffy. Next. Here we have a wonderful image from 1930 of the water race flooding, absolutely flooding with water, and the water seemingly defying all the known laws of physics by going the opposite direction and obviously sheeting right over the top of the wheel instead of pouring under. For real, for real. So they managed to have it back feeding and causing a huge spill. I wonder how they did that. Almost there. The wheel supposedly ground to a halt in 1942 when a pinion broke. And that was the end of that, or so they say. Here's an image from 1939 with vines growing on the water race and the whole thing looking a bit overgrown and abandoned. Then, this image from 1941, we have everything all tidy and tickety-boo again. We'll just write that off as a mistake, maybe, but I'm not convinced myself. And are we all clear on how water wheels work now? Clear as mud, so they say? Well, I wasn't, so I kept looking, and I found Pat here. Pat helped me understand what was going on. She's having a problem with the water there too. So it turns out Pat is dealing with a mill that was apparently moved, and there was no water wherever they moved it to. So, interesting. Same. So, as Pat explains, the problem was on this site we don't have a river. So we had to engineer a whole water system. They had to dig out a pond and line it because of the ground there. And then below the wheel, they needed another pond. That had to be dug out and lined as well. And because there's no river, we have to pump the water back up and reuse it. Sounds simple, except for the pump. We need to have the water flowing over the water wheel. Got it? That's what I thought. So they start the mill by taking a very large spanner to open the sluice gates, which control where the water comes out of the big mill pond. Blah, blah, we open the sluice gate. Water then flows along a channel at the back of the mill until it reaches the water wheel, and it starts to fill up what we call buckets. And we need to fill about 4 of those before the weight of the water makes the wheel turn. And then the water tops up the next one and the next one, so it keeps turning continuously. So whilst that's answered some questions for me, I do note that our wheel here in this example turns the opposite direction. So if the water is coming from somewhere, which I still can't figure out, it's not going over the wheel and the wheel's turning that way. It's hitting the wheel and running down this way. Now, both ways are possible, but then where is the water going? It's either going underground or it's going under this building and this way. So I'm back to this image. If this is some attempt at a creek, it's not in the same place that it is now. So something's moved. And I still can't work out all the things wrong with this photo. What is all this rubble? It's meant to be 20 or 30 years after the mill was built. What's going on with this? And this chimney is just in the middle of nowhere in the ground. Where's the pond? Help, people, help. Did it really work? Is the whole thing fugazi? Here's some other shenanigans going on back in the day. There was a convalescent home for children, approximately 1900 on this one. Just in case you weren't sure, the attack of the benevolent societies was happening in South Australia too. The Queen Victoria Convalescent Home for Children opened at Mount Lofty in 1898. It is a red brick Federation-style building featuring an arched window and entrance to the veranda. There is a large front gable, blah, blah, blah. The inscription on the plaque near the front window reads, "In grateful recognition of the generous help rendered by the Children's Sunbeam Society in the erection of this home, October 1898. On the back of the photo, Queen Victoria Convalescent Home near Mount Lofty Railway Station, about 1900. And the image shows us a lovely old world building, a slightly doctored image by the look of it, but single story at the front, ground all neatly leading to it, and then it drops away at the back, so it's perched on the side of a hill. Another spectacular opening of a bridge nearby. They love their fake opening photos, don't they? Let's look at this one. Approximately 1920, crowds attending the official opening ceremony for a new bridge in the Mount Lofty Ranges. Except it's an old bridge. And we can see where you've got your usual renter crowd with mismatched shadows. Let me bring that up. This guy's blocking his shadow, but we've got shadows going that direction and then shadows going that direction. And the whole thing is pasted in trees to hide the fakery. The trees are casting no shadows on the renter crowd, for goodness sake. So it's your pasted-in crowd, but also this is completely white. You can't even see any outline of the shape, probably because they've taken out oldie-worldy lighting. These flags look fake as too. They've popped a big stick in there to hold those up, apparently. Beautiful bridge. Let me zoom back out. You see how dark the shadow is? Some of the shadows are dark, some of them are pale. But they just paste a crowd in. It's new. Look, we opened it in 1920. And finally, I can't not mention the Ash Wednesday bushfires on the 16th of February 1983. Ash Wednesday, marking the beginning of Lent in the Christian calendar. These fires destroyed huge areas of both Victoria and South Australia. 1983. A large two-storey house near Mount Lofty destroyed during the 1983 Ash Wednesday bushfire. They lost a significant amount of architecture back then. There are still ruins littered about the place. What a shame. Well, that's all I have for you today, friends. That mill wheel was better than the castle. I'll leave you with some music and some real estate porn from the surrounding area to ponder castles on hills. Thanks for joining me today. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. If you enjoyed this presentation or any of my others, please consider buying me a cup of coffee to help keep the channel going. Thank you.